Good day. The Russia-Ukraine war has been raging for the past 3 years, and we are beginning to get the sense that it may just be getting to that point where the Ukrainians are coming to the realization that this war is not going their way. Ukraine has had the full benefit of the West. The war was started. The Russians call it a special military operation, but for the Ukrainians, they call it Russian aggression and invasion of their territory. This war was started long ago, 2014, when the people of the Donbas region chose to rebel against the Ukrainian government for the coup that happened, the Maidan coup in 2014 that removed Viktor Yanukovych. But now, in 2022, the special military operation started by President Putin against the Ukrainian state, first in an attempt to protect the civilians in Donbas, and then also to protect the Russian-speaking civilians in Donbas, but mainly also to stave off attempts by Ukraine to join NATO. The Russians have quite a long list of requirements of the Ukrainians, but this war has been going on, and the West fully supported the Ukrainians. The West, the cheerleader then, or the one who promoted this war and told the Ukrainians to go ahead headlong into it, was not only the American President Joe Biden, but also British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. All through that time, since then, there have been three other British prime ministers, and the French president has also been a BRICS supporter. This war has changed the dynamics and the reality in Europe. The war has made two countries, Finland and Sweden, to join NATO, become part of the NATO alliance, to bringing the number of NATO alliance countries to 32. And all these countries have trained their guns against Russia in this war. But we get the sense now that from statements being made by the people who are persecuting this war on the Ukrainian side, we may just be beginning to see the end of the war, or the resistance being put up by the Ukrainians. Good day, and welcome to my channel, Ibima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the opinions I put in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Ukraine's top commander, General Alexander Syrsky, delivered a grim admission on Monday that Ukraine is fighting at a catastrophic disadvantage. On his official Telegram channel, Syrsky considered that Russian forces currently enjoy a threefold advantage in manpower and resources, and in some sectors, the imbalance is as high as 6-1. This imbalance is showing in the battlefield. The unrelenting amount of drones that once were very difficult and they were sent in waves, were being husbanded and sent in waves that were more manageable, are now being sent in huge waves across Ukraine. They are now also being used as tactical weapons. FVP drones have changed the war, and now they have teams of FVP drone operators on the Russian side that are overwhelming the teams that first were helping the Ukrainians to hold off the Russians. This unrelenting production that Russia has stepped up, production in artillery, production in drones, production in missiles, hypersonic missiles, it's beginning to tell on the war front. But it has been the maneuver and the philosophy behind this war that the Russians had adopted. It was one of attrition. They weren't seeking territory. They were just focused on destroying the Ukrainian military. This attrition has seen them hold off positions and allow the Ukrainians to continue to attack them so that they will destroy their army. The whole goal is to denazify and to destroy the Ukrainian army. They want that Ukrainian army to collapse ultimately. And it seems like they're getting to that breaking point. These days, we hear stories about how on the 1,500 kilometer front, the Ukrainians and the Russians are putting pressures in multiple points, to the point now where the Ukrainians are having to move their troops around to try and hold off. In Pokrovsk, while they are trying to send troops to Pokrovsk, the Russians will step up in Sumy or step up in Kharkiv or Kupiansk and Liman. This is just what they have been doing. They have been putting so much pressure that the Ukrainians are beginning to feel the heat of it. But it is also the military-industrial complex in Russia that has really surprised the world. New weapon systems are being developed, but even the old ones, the aviation systems, the Su-34 and Su-35, Su-57, are being delivered at a steady rate. We don't hear much about the participation of the killer helicopters again, the attack helicopters. They have been there, but the drones and all the suites of drones, the kamikaze drones, and have been very effective in the war front and the battlefront, and this has really is beginning to tell. So Syrsky's public admission is also coming at a time that President Zelensky is, while giving an interview, while responding to a question by an American reporter, said that the very fact that Russia did not win, has not occupied the whole of Ukraine, is a victory for the Ukrainians. This rhetoric has changed. We should not forget that Russia has been fighting against not just Ukraine, but the whole of NATO. $350 billion of armament from different countries. We have Turkish weapons, we have American weaponry, we have British, French, Swedish, and Danish weaponry, and instructors from all these countries, all making sure that they help the Ukrainian cause. The only contribution of the Ukrainians being that they are the ones doing the fighting on behalf of the whole of Europe and the whole of NATO. It has been one where the war has led to consequences in the world, economic cleavages, divisions in all the established interactions between Europe and Russia. It has been broken, and Russia has had to turn to the east. Now we are beginning to see a point where, in frustration, the Europeans are beginning to look at a new strategy because they've rolled out 18 suites of sanctions, tried to destroy. The whole idea was to collapse the Russian economy, and it hasn't happened. Now they're talking about 19th suite of sanctions, but that is not just it. They feel that Russia has been able to survive this war because of the friends it has made, India, China, and all those countries that support the economy of Russia. Russia has really stepped up. They've improved their marketing. They've opened new markets for their products in agricultural products, chemical products. We get to know that apart from the resources that Russia has in large numbers, hydrocarbon assets that really are the mainstay of the economy, hydrocarbon assets that are sought after by China, by India, and by all the other countries. There's also a suite of other chemical products and agricultural products that they are now selling around to the whole world. Already we know that the Russians are very good at military weaponry, but because of this special military operation, they have been forced to slow down on their export of military arms. So the Ukrainians are coming to the realization that this war is almost lost. We hear of how they are losing territories all over Ukraine and in the Donbas region there. So Syrsky made this statement, and the statement has gained a lot of traction in the social media. It has gained a lot of discussion. But another thing too that happened now is that because of the upcoming elections, and because of all the elections and the fact that Zelensky is being forced to want to make an election, he is beginning to consolidate, and he's beginning to make sure that all his rivals and all the people who oppose him are controlled. Today, something very telling happened. One of Zelensky's former most loyal and trusted supporters, his foreign ministers, left the country. Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba claimed that he managed to run away from the country shortly before Vladimir Zelensky enacted a decree banning former diplomats from foreign trips. Kuleba, who is currently in Poland, made the remarks in an interview with an Italian newspaper. I never thought I would have to run away from my country like a thief in the night, Kuleba told the paper. He claimed that the decree was aimed directly at him and a handful of other diplomats. And the truth is that Zelensky and his entourage do not want us to go abroad and say things that, yes, there's quite a lot of opposition to Zelensky, especially we remember his former defense minister who was dismissed. And he does have opposition and he does worry for his position in the government. We already know that he has opposition. There's a camp that is very ultra-nationalist, and the one that involves the president he defeated in the elections, Poroshenko. In that camp, he has there's the mayor of Kyiv, um, the mayor of Kyiv, the boxer. It's crazy how these names just escape your head when when you're talking, but uh, Klitschko, Vladimir Klitschko, one of the Klitschko brothers. And the mayor is a big opponent and critic of Zelensky, but it is now in its own cabinet, former members of his cabinet that he is worried about. We know of why he had to send away Zelensky, his former ambassador, I mean, it's former general, the one who is now Syrsky took over from. That one felt that some of the strategies being used in the war, especially in that war, where in that 2023 offensive was wrong. And that is how he was now made forced out of government and sent to UK as an ambassador. The criticisms for Ukraine for Zelensky is quite high. It's not as if but he has already done a lot to try and stave it. He has shut down the media. He has cracked down on the Russian Orthodox Church. He has done quite a lot to have full control. It's not a joke when people say that Zelensky is practically a dictator in Ukraine. But all that is going on now is making one to wonder. The world is obviously very divided. And one person who is now talking a lot, he's always been an opponent of this war, is Viktor Orban. Viktor Orban does feel that the only outcome for Ukraine will be that Ukraine will be partitioned. He feels that one part will be in the west and one part will be in the east. That's the part the Russians already take, and then in between them will be a buffer zone. But the European Union Financial Times reported today that European Union is trying to do something that we just don't know how far they can stretch it. That the European Union is considering secondary sanctions on China. That will be a stretch because China, I really don't know what kind of leverage the European Union will have. But just like every other thing that the European Union has been doing these days, they want to do it in coordination with America. Coordination with America is not going to work because America is not sold on this war. President Donald Trump is just going through the motions. He remembers what Zelensky did to him. He remembers what the Ukrainian member of the National Security Council did to him, the one whistleblower who gave information to the Democrats, and the Democrats used that to impeach him. That is my position. I feel completely that despite all the motions and all the swerving that Donald Trump has been doing, he is not a fan of Zelensky, and there's just no way they can compel him to support the Ukrainian cause. They brought it upon themselves. He always says this. He says that you can't go fighting somebody who is 5 times the size of your country and expect good outcomes. But the European Union is considering secondary sanctions on China over its continued purchase of Russian oil and gas. Financial Times reported on Monday, citing anonymous sources. That means that it's somebody's planted story, probably British intelligence or somebody in the UK, most likely the UK. The British newspaper reported that the EU officials began discussing the matter on Sunday. Before committing to any punitive measures against Beijing, Brussels reportedly wants to have a full backing of the US and coordination with Washington, according to Financial Times. To ensure this, EU officials traveled to the US on Monday, while Energy Secretary Chris Wright will head to the Brussels later this week. President Trump has started to use the fact that the Europeans are buying Indian oil as his off-ramp. He is not doing anything against the Russians anymore. He wants to improve Russia bilateral relationship between Russia and America. There's a lot of benefit to America, and this war is standing in its way. Despite all the posturing of Zelensky and the Europeans are coming to the full realization that they can't rely on Donald Trump for this war. On this war, they want this war to continue and Donald Trump to be in the mix of it. But Donald Trump has told them that he has other strategic objectives for America. It's America's interest first. The sad thing is that the Europeans don't bring anything to the table anymore. Once they had a big economy, they were very innovative. 2 world wars broke them. All the development and all the technologies in the world used to be in Europe, in France, and in Britain just before the war, and Germany just before World War I. But during the war and in the aftermath of the war, Britain, Germany, and France lost all their best scientists to America. America became the beneficiary of innovation and technology, and since then they become the preeminent leaders in the world. There's just nothing that the Europeans are bringing to the table for Donald Trump. So this is just not going to happen. The actions of the EU has made Viktor Orban to say that the EU is just going to collapse. He just looks at the EU and says, these people are not serious. The EU is on the verge of collapse and will not survive beyond the next decade without a fundamental structural overhaul and disentanglement from the Ukraine conflict. Viktor Orban has warned. He was speaking somewhere in Hungary, and he said, this is just not going to happen. The whole of Europe is so focused on this Ukraine war. They are doing rearmament, and because of the war, they've come into camps. All those who support the war and those who don't support the war. Viktor Orban and Slovakian President Fico don't support the war, and they just use all their energies in trying to crush them. The EU is currently on the verge of falling apart and has entered a state of fragmentation. And if this continues like this, it will go down in history as a depressing end result of a once noble experiment. The fact that the European Union is trying to become the overlord of 27 states that have independence, have different peoples, different cultures, and different agendas is an experiment that people feel will soon be broken off. But today, there's a lot of interesting things. This war has taken quite a lot of toll on quite a lot of countries. And one of the countries today that there was a lot of news out of is France. The Prime Minister of France, François Bayrou, lost a vote of confidence in the National Assembly because France has gotten into debt. Their GDP, debt to GDP ratio has gone very high. And they lost a vote of confidence because he was trying to push a bill that will rein in spending in France. France is in a bad place. France, Germany, and Britain, they are all in a bad place. They have pushed this war to the point where they have now damaged their economies. The EU may be one big body, but ultimately it's made up of countries, and these countries are now beginning to feel the heat of this, their folly. France is suffering also because now they are in debt. They can't continue with the social services, and now they are expected to start to increase their military spending because the military umbrella that they used to have under NATO is being broken apart, or they can't rely very much on America as long as Donald Trump is the president. But France is a much better military force than most European countries. A vote of no confidence in the national requires 288 votes, but today there was 364 votes against the former prime minister now, with the national New Popular Front and the right-wing National Rally uniting in opposition to end the months-long standoff with Borrow's austerity budget. He wants them to rein in their spending, but it didn't happen. His budget was proposing to cut spending in France by 44 billion euros, but that didn't happen. Meanwhile, France and the debt it has, the Germans feel that this is a big threat to the Eurozone. Because this kind of debt, we remember when Greece had debt that was about 150% of GDP. The Germans went down they went really, really hard on Greece, imposed some very strong austerity measures on Greece, and Greece went through some years of humiliation. Ironically now, Greece is the one with the best debt to GDP ratio, one of the best in Europe at this time that Germany and Britain and France are undergoing some serious pain. The debt in a German chancellor, a German politician was warning today that France debt may collapse the EU. France has one of the highest national debts in the EU, currently standing at 3.3 trillion, about 113% of GDP. The ratio is expected to climb to 125% of GDP. The budget deficit is projected at 5.8%. So this guy is a researcher. His name is Friedrich Heinemann of the ZEW Label Center for European Economic Research in Mannheim, Germany, told DW that we should be worried. The Eurozone is not in a stable point. The Eurozone may be going through problems, but that doesn't mean that the world is going through problems. There's a group called the BRICS. The BRICS had a meeting today. This meeting was called by President Lula of Brazil. He wants the world to move away from the dollar. He wants the world to move away from the economic system that was built by the West, especially the one led by America. And he called a meeting especially in response to the tariffs. And what came out of it was that today's meeting of BRICS was one that had quite almost all the members of BRICS in attendance. The representative of the only person who wasn't there was Modi. He was represented by his prime minister. But this is the picture of all the people who took part in it. The Egyptian prime minister, the president of Indonesia, the South African president, the Indian foreign minister represented then, MFA of Ethiopia, President Lula, President Xi Jinping, and the BRICS has become a formidable organization, as we know. They represent over 50% of the world's population and 55%, and they also represent quite a lot of the economy now. By GDP terms, they are now bigger than the G7. The president of Iran proposed a mechanism within which BRICS to counter the Western sanctions. Sanctions has become a problem for some countries, especially like Iran. Iran's concern is sanctions. But Xi Jinping stressed the transformation unseen in a century, accelerating the world, and he condemned hegemonism, unilateralism, protectionism, and all those things that the Americans are doing. He says they are getting too rampant, and trade wars and tariffs are being waged in countries, and this shouldn't be so. BRIC countries are standing at the forefront of global south and should act as in a spirit of openness, inclusiveness, and win-win cooperation, jointly defending multilateralism and multilateral trading system. It's an ironical thing now that all the dictates of the ideals of organizations like the WTO now are being promoted by BRIC countries, while the countries that did this liberal democracy and liberal economics and all are now moving into protectionism and trying to protect their territories. One very important thing that has come out of this trade war that we just got information that Modi will not be attending the United Nations General Assembly in New York, and it's not unconnected with the fact that he has a problem with America, with President Trump, because he has taken sides now with definitely with the BRICS, but also with China and with Russia. he has said that they can't be bullied out of not buying Russian oil, and he will continue to buy Russian oil. And meanwhile, we are getting to hear a lot now that the coming winter may not be an easy one for Europe because it's they have a big shortfall. Europe has a big shortfall in oil, in gas, and they may not be able to heat their cities and their homes because of this same war. It's the Gazprom, the head of Gazprom, Russia's Gazprom, who was saying it. EU's problems are not have not ended; they are compounding. At a time that China has become the biggest producer of electricity in the world by per capita income per capita production of electricity. That's a lot. That's a country with 1.4 billion people consuming more electricity than what each person in Europe or America consumes. It tells a lot of how the productive capacity of the Chinese, and that's the same thing that is going on in most of Southeast Asia, not to even talk of Russia. They are all energy sufficient. India is not energy sufficient, and it is for that reason that for strategic reasons they will continue to buy Russian oil and gas. So Gazprom is warning that the EU is going to face a cold winter. The head of Gazprom, Zelensky Miller, warned that, citing data from Gas Infrastructure Europe, he says, we are now seeing the situation steadily worsening. This is what we have been talking about. Another year will pass, and where else can it go? If there's normal cold winter, this will become a real problem for Europe. Anyway, that's their problem. Russia is making sure that it expands its market, and Russia, we just saw the power of Siberia gas pipeline that was just agreed to by China and Russia, big gas pipeline that will add another $50 billion cubics of gas to the supply to China. We also got information today that Russia will be supplying gas to Iran, and Iran will first take 55 billion cubic meters of gas in the coming months. I don't know how that is going to reach Iran. I don't know if it will be through LNG. I don't know how they will pipe it to Iran from Russia, but I guess they may be using the Caspian Sea. And Iran will use most of it for its northern states, use it for its domestic, and then also send some to some neighboring countries. I want to end today's video with something that happened in UK. UK, there was a Banksy mural today. Banksy is the satirist who always has a way of reflecting society. And he made a mural today. He put out a mural, and that mural was about the mural was about the justice system in UK. We saw all the demonstrations that took place in United Kingdom over the weekend, the demonstrations about actions on Palestine. And it's sad that the United Kingdom, it was the police and the justices in the United Kingdom who were going after most of the demonstrators. So Banksy came out with a very telling. Anonymous artist Banksy has unveiled a new mural in London's High Court depicting a judge striking protesters with a gavel in what appears to be a commentary of the mass arrest and demonstrations backing the banned campaign group Palestine Action. He shared the image on Instagram on Monday, stenciled piece. What happened is that the moment the image came out, the police, the judges made sure that they send the police to go and block that image. But it just shows that the world is not quiet about what's going on in Palestine. There was demonstrations in Mexico, in Australia, in Canada, in so many countries. And the kind of demonstrations that took place were one that amazed the world. Huge numbers, in some cases, 100,000 people. The world is, the actions in Palestine has changed the way the world views the countries in that region, especially the countries that support the activities that are taking place in that region. This is where I end my video for today. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. If you have any opinions regarding the views I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Thank you. Until I see you in my next video. You have a good day.